this Adolph Mongo. Do we have sound? You know.
Morning. Yes,
do we have sound?
Good morning, D-Love.
You have sound. Do we have? Can people hear us here in the?
Say yay.
Can you hear us, Reese? All right.
All right.
Go for it, Adolph.
This is live. This is live from Washington D.C. Adolph Mongo. We go back into our regular studio at McShane's. Jim Nardone, how you doing?
Good morning.
Good morning, Attorney Vanessa Moss. Shit started, Vanessa Moss. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Allan. Lengel, co-founder of Deadline Detroit.
Good morning. Good morning.
And to all our viewers out there in podcast land, we're not any live Instagram shit going on like Shannon Sharp.
You talk about Club Shay Shay? Oh, can you believe?
It's a family show. There's a family.
Yeah.
Allan
I didn't know about it. Tell people what the word is. You want to?
He was having sex and he live streamed the shit. You know what?
Who is he? Tell people who he is.
He's a Hall of Fame football player. Played on 3 Super Bowls for Denver Broncos. His brother used to play for the Green Bay Packers. They hell of athletes. He was on the what is that with Skip Bayless?
ESPN.
Yeah.
Now he's on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, they fired him.
Yeah, and he has one of the top-rated podcasts. I watch his podcast regularly.
Higher rated than us?
But
no,
they fired him. They fired him.
ESPN did? They did?
Yeah, they fired him.
That's a rumor now. I don't believe that.
No, that's true. He got fired.
When?
Last 24 hours, he's gone. It's like Robert De Niro said in Goodfellas. They told him, Joe Pesci, he's gone. I couldn't do anything about it.
Wow. I read that they weren't going to get rid of him because it was a mistake. It wasn't something that he did.
It wasn't no mistake.
What did he do? Say what he did.
So he was engaging, if you will, with a woman, and it went live on Instagram. But you don't see any pictures. All you do is you hear a lot of moaning and groaning and him talking.
But why would you tape it? Why would you tape that shit?
It was live. But this is the thing. He says that he doesn't know how it happened. He don't know how to work Instagram or anything.
He confessed. He confessed. He did it. He did it.
He confessed that it was him. First, he said it was hacked. Then he said no, he just didn't know how to work Instagram or anything like that, and he doesn't know how it happened. So that's what he confessed to.
But why would you put that on? But you know what?
It was a mistake, he says.
And listen, the state of entertainment in this country, in the world. Listen, I know who 50 Cent is, Rihanna, all them, but I couldn't name any of their songs. The only thing I know about them is that they get on Facebook or they get on TV shows and they trash each other. That's all I know about them. You know,
so you're in Washington, D.C., right? So the truth flows pretty regularly there in Washington, D.C. So I'm looking at a report right now that said no, ESPN hasn't fired.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm looking at this and say, oh, we'll see. He's gone. I bet he's gone, Jim.
I don't think so.
But you reporting this fake news, Jim. You reporting the fake news and that minstrel.
Oh my God.
But let's get back to
Jeffrey Toobin on CNN, who was on a Zoom call, and it was a break, and he didn't realize his camera was on, and he started masturbating.
Right.
And so, but he came back recently.
Right.
He's back on the air. So apparently in the media, nothing's really fatal when you do things.
Well, that's like Merv Alpert. Remember Merv Alpert? Remember they got him. He was dressed up as a woman and was getting beat up doing sex. They had some prostitute.
Yeah, he made it back. He had a little hiatus, and then he made it back.
He got beat up.
Well, he was doing some weird sex
Oh,
shit. And,
oh, wow.
but he was tossed off the air, but he came back eventually. So I guess in the media, if you're good, you make it back some way.
Okay, well, let's stop with the fake news and let's get some real news.
That's fake news.
No, that's fake news, as far as I'm concerned. I go to you, Vanessa.
Those are not alternative facts.
What is your outrage of the week?
So, I want you to do yours first because I want to piggyback on something you and I talked about. So I'm going to pass.
Okay, I'll do mine. And you know what, Allan, you sent out some funny stuff about dogs leaving Springfield because of the debate. You know, that was funny, but it was offensive that we do not call out those folks that said that you better watch your pets because the Haitians are eating your dogs. You know, keep them in the house. Listen, we know who eat dogs. It ain't Haitians. You know, Chinese, like, they got a problem because they eat dogs. We got people in this country eat raccoons, eat possums, eat squirrels.
Muskrat.
Yeah, we got in the Philippines, they eat live monkey brains. People eat what they eat. But when you tell a lie, and the lie is a racist, a piece of shit lie, because you want to win this election, so you start making up shit. Ted Cruz father fled Cuba with a suitcase full of money when Castro took power. His mother was born in Canada. He was born in Canada, American citizen. Rubio fled Cuba. His family left. He's a first generation born here from Cuba. Ron DeSantis' family, his parents came from Italy, and these people trashing the Haitians. They leading the charge of, you know what? These people coming over here, they replacing folks. Now they eating your dogs. So in a minute, you're gonna have signs say, "Beware, Haitians live in the building. Keep your pets inside." It's not funny. You can make a joke of it, but it's not fucking funny.
So Adolph, there is a story where there was a woman who in Ohio, she had fur on her lips. She actually had eaten a cat. And so I think that the former president, the police were called. She's 27 years old. Clearly, when you read the story, you could tell that she has some form of mental illness. But that is how the story grew legs. I believe that he took that story and other people said, hey, these people are eating cats. This is a Black woman, 27-year-old, that actually ate a cat. But you know what? Other part of this, wait a minute, the other part of this is this. We're in this election cycle. We talk about immigration is a big issue, but the other issue is inflation, right? And I think I talked to you about this, and I know I mentioned to Teresa. I said, listen, when I read the story, even though we're not talking about an animal, I harkened back to one of my favorite shows, which is Good Times, where the lady was eating apple. She was eating dog food, and she went to the house. They had a dinner, and she was supposed to be serving meatloaf, and they didn't want to eat the meatloaf because they thought that she was serving, dog food. The fact of the matter is, immigration is a real issue. No, it should not be. You should not. It's offensive that you try to make it appear as if it's Black people from Haiti that's doing this, that's eating animals.
But they've been doing this.
Immigration is a real issue. Inflation is a real issue.
Yeah, they've been doing this. They've been doing this for 50 years. When folks came from Vietnam in the 70s, they was accused of eating all the wild animals in little towns that they settled in. Remember Allan Stanley's, the Chinese place that used to be downtown?
It was on Woodward. Wasn't it Woodward and 8 Mile? But it was
but he had two. One was on Baltimore. Okay.
Right.
I was working for Coleman Young, and Stanley had the most popular Chinese restaurant. And then the rumor got out that he was they was killing dogs and serving it to people. And the,
Right.
and the mayor at the time took 50 of his appointees and went and ate lunch there because Stanley got on TV. He said, I'm a World War II veteran. I lost half a leg. And why would these people want to put me out of business? Well,
Right.
it was some of his competitors that floated the rumors out. But we always, people always done that, saying if they don't like somebody before social media, they just, word of mouth. But now you got people saying, yeah, you got to better keep your animals safe because, if you got more than 2 Haitians in your neighborhood, they're going to start taking your pets.
Yeah.
Well, it's a denigration of immigrants. I mean, they make really making it hard. The idea, the perception is like, oh my God, they took some busloads of Haitians and they dumped them off and they're wandering aimlessly through the streets there and grabbing cats and geese and whatever. Where these people have been there, they were drawn there because of manufacturing jobs. They've created a community there, and they're trying to denigrate immigrants. The way Trump talks about immigrants, they're not human, and it's such bullshit.
Well, his wife is an immigrant. His in-laws are immigrants.
Right.
His
first wife was an immigrant.
You know what? These folks are hypocrites.
I want to know if Vanessa knows the beginning of the song for Good Times. Temporary layoffs, good times, easy credit rip-off.
I hate it. I hate that show.
Oh, I'm sorry. My favorite character. I couldn't stand JJ. I did not think he was funny, even as a kid. I loved James Evans. I loved him. I loved his character. I could care less about who was that? Michael. I could care less about.
I like Michael.
Well, James. What you know? What I
love James, and I hate the way that they killed him off that show.
Wait a minute. I stopped watching it when James found 20 grand and they lived in the project and he turned it in. Florida, you gotta turn it in. Listen, that ain't even real.
She refused to get out of the ghetto. She wanted to continue to live in the ghetto. It was terrible. Kyra said shucking and jiving. You right. But
hey, Denzel and Timothy, thanks for checking in with us today. Thanks for participating.
Dude, I hope they watch Good Times as well. But I still watch it, from time to time. But I used to watch it every day up until about 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
I would try to hurry up before COVID. I would try to hurry up and get home so I could watch the reruns over and over again.
Well, who created the show. Who created the show.
Yeah, Duela said just Black immigrants. I think what she's saying is that Trump has focused on the Black immigrants as opposed to immigrants all around. So, yeah.
All right. Well, why don't we do a commercial break? We've got our 2 guests ready, and then we can come back later to the rest of the outrages. How's that?
Okay.
All right.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be, all because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
Yeah. Okay, we are back here, and we've got two guests. We've got two candidates for the Michigan Supreme Court. We've got Kimberly Thomas and Justice Kyra Harris Bolden. I'll just give a real quick. Kimberly, a graduate of Harvard Law School. We worked at Detroit News together. She's a law professor at the University of Michigan School. She directs the Juvenile Justice Clinic. Graduate of Maryland, University of Maryland undergrad. And then we have Justice Harris Bolden. She was appointed to the bench by Governor Whitmer in January 2023. And she is a former state representative who was on the Judiciary Committee, a graduate of Grand Valley State University and the University of Detroit Mercy Law School. Welcome.
Good morning, ladies.
I'm sorry, who's that? Okay, there we go.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for. So let me ask you a question. You guys are running for being judges, and you're running basically for re-election. Can you say where we stand for this? We're pro-abortion, we're pro-choice, or something. How careful do you have to be when you're out there campaigning? Go ahead. Either one of you want to grab that?
Sure. So I can grab that. The judicial canons actually do have some pretty significant restrictions on the kinds of things that we can speak to on the trail. Certainly, the reason for that is if cases come before us, or hypothetically, if I'm elected to the court, we want to make sure that people don't think that those cases are prejudged, and also that we wouldn't have to recuse ourselves from a case that involved an area of law that we've made a statement on. And so, it's really both the judicial canons and an abundance of caution to not have to be recusing yourselves from cases that we don't, say this is our position on, X, Y, and Z. Certainly there are organizations that have endorsed both Justice Bolden and I that, feel that we would represent, their choice on the court. And so we certainly appreciate them and think that people can look to those to see who they want to vote for in this race.
And Justice Bolden, you're both nominated by the Democratic Party. If people ask you and say, well, I mean, the understanding is that the court is 4-3 in favor of either liberals or Democrats. When people ask you, are you a liberal or what do you stand for? What's your answer to that?
So my answer is that I stand for justice. I think if you look at the decisions that I've made or the decisions that I've authored, sometimes I side with what people are conservatives, and sometimes I side with what people would be considered liberals. I was a judicial law clerk first in Wayne County 3rd Circuit Court. And so I've always taken the approach of taking all the information that's available to me and trying to make the best decision possible for Michiganders. And I believe that Professor Thomas has those same values, but we're operating by the rules that were set forth for us in the Michigan Constitution, and that states that you have to be nominated by a party in order to be on the ballot for Michigan Supreme Court.
Should there not? Let me just real quick. Should there not be a designation in the future of R or D in front of your name? You guys are perceived as a Democratic nominee. Should there not be a designation of that, or is that misleading to people, or is it confusing to people?
Again, not to speak for the both of us, but we're operating under the rules that have been set forth for years and years and years before us under the Michigan Constitution. And if those Michiganders wish to change those rules, then we will operate by those rules set forth. But I don't have a particular opinion. We are operating by the rules that are set forth for us. So yes, we are nominated by the Michigan Democratic Party. The Republican Party will nominate, and other parties have nominated in the past, such as the Green Party or the Libertarian Party. So that is the way that Michiganders set it forth in our Constitution. And if anybody would like changes, then they can go through that process.
Well, the Adolph Mongo here is that a lot of critics do see the court as being very political, because in the past you had former governors being appointed to the court, politicians, and they say, well, it's nonpartisan, but it really, you can be a conservative person, but if a Democrat appoint you or nominate you, you automatically get a label. And then if you get on the court and you really vote your conscience and the law, they say, oh, you want to betrayed our party. So how do you say change it? We said that on term limits, and here we are, we got term limits. So
yeah, Kimberly.
Yeah, I would just echo what Justice Bolden said. This is different from state to state across the country. So some states do have Democrat or Republican next to their Supreme Court justices. In a lot of those states that have that, those candidates do speak more freely and have fewer constraints on taking positions on issues, but not all. And some places are completely nonpartisan. So there's no party nomination. I don't know if we have the worst or the best of all worlds, but
what about being appointed? In Iowa, they appoint the judges. And listen, there's a system. It's not perfect, but what is perfect? You got no age limits in the federal court or the Supreme Court, and then you come here and you see a judge that's been great, been doing a great job for 20 years. They turn 70 and you say, bye, you got to go. So, there's no uniform policy around the country.
Yeah, I know with the U.S. Supreme Court, a lot of people, those are appointments. Those are not listed as partisan appointments. A lot of people criticize that as partisan, right? So even a system where it purports to have completely nonpartisan, people still worry about the partisan nature of it. We really want to emphasize that, we have the system we have, but people here in Michigan can vote for their state Supreme Court justices. They can have their voices heard on their justice system in the state. And so we really want people to exercise that right.
Are you campaigning hard? Are you Justin Bolden? You as a state rep, is it the same as when you campaign to get elected? Now you got a campaign to stay on the court?
Well, yeah, I ran for office in 2022, and if anyone remembers that campaign, I did it while I was pregnant, and I still had a full-time job in the legislature. So yes, going all over across the state of Michigan. In 2022, I went to the UP 7 months pregnant, spent days up there. I went back 2 months postpartum, and so Kimberly and I have been across Michigan in this campaign. I know that Kimberly has been in the UP. I spent 6 days up north. And so we're absolutely trying to reach every single voter through events, through visiting, through speaking engagements. Kimberly and I are running joint together. You will see joint commercials. You will see joint yard signs. And so we are campaigning very hard together to make sure that Michiganders know who we are, know who they're voting for, and trust us with their vote.
How do you distinguish yourself when you guys can't really talk about issues like abortion and everything else? How do you distinguish yourself from your opponents? How do people know how to say, well, yeah, you're much better? How do you couch that when you're talking to people?
Well, for me, I think it's good that both myself and Kimberly have very public records in our community. For me, I was a state representative, so all of that is public. And also, I have 8 majority opinions that I've authored and obviously made decisions on other cases in the last year and a half. And so people are more than welcome to look at my campaign website for more insight about me, or just look at my public record. And not to speak for Kimberly, but she has done great work being a professor at U of M Law, and her work and her cases are also very public as well. And we have individual websites, but we also have a joint website where you can find out more information about the both of us. And so I trust and I want Professor Thomas on the court with me, because I believe that she will make great decisions for Michiganders based upon her record and knowing her personally. And again, for me, Michiganders can see my very public record and see if I'm the person that they want to continue to see on the Michigan Supreme Court.
Professor
Yeah,
Thomas.
you're an incumbent, and Kimberly, you are a professor. The question I have is it helpful being an incumbent? And for Kimberly, are you getting support from students at University of Michigan?
Yes, I am getting support from students at the University of Michigan. So I'm a law professor at the U of M, and go blue football Saturday. So, and they are very supportive. I really want to make sure that our young people across the state, whether they're in college or not in college, are out there voting this fall. We want them to be engaged and understand that they, can vote in this election. And so I've been doing that work on my campus, as well as, we're working on some other campuses as well. And, with young people who are not, engaged in college. So really excited for that. To just reference back, I do think that, I've been a lawyer for 25 years for individual clients. Started my career as a public defender. And so I do think that our records and experience, speak to the kind of justices that Justice Bolden is and that I will be.
Allan said you worked with him at the Detroit News. What did you do, Professor?
I was a reporter at the Detroit News.
So you went from reporting the news to making the news.
Yes. So I was a reporter at the Detroit News. As Allan knows, we were both in Local 22 of the Newspaper Guild in 1995, when our union and the 5 other unions of the Detroit newspapers went out on strike. And so we were out on strike together. During that, I really, that helped solidify for me, frankly, the importance of law on people's lives. And so I decided to go to law school. So I went from the picket line here in Detroit to law school.
That's good. Allan.
All right. Well, okay. Well, we want to wish both of you good luck there. The election's November the 5th. Are you guys doing a lot of traveling? Are you still going up north and all around the state?
Oh yeah. I'll be back up north in a couple of weeks. And we have been traveling around town. We usually, I know Kimberly's schedule is stacked. I think I have 3 events after this today. And so we are trying to meet as many Michiganders as possible to tell them about this team and why we should be on the Michigan Supreme Court.
Okay.
Well, ladies, you guys, met both of you, familiar with me. God bless you. I wish you well. I'll see you guys out there in the streets.
All right,
I'll see you later today at the African American Museum. I'm assuming you guys are going, but I'll see you guys later. God bless you.
All right. Thanks so much. Good luck to both of you. Thanks again. All right. Thank you.
So Professor Thomas was one of those rebel rousers, huh?
She was on strike for quite a while. Then she went to Harvard. She dropped out of the strike to go to Harvard Law School. So,
but the problem with this so-called nonpartisan BS in our courts and stuff is just do it right. You're a Republican or you're a Democrat, or no Green Party is going to get elected. We only had one independent justice in the last 40, 50 years. What was that? Mark Kavanaugh, somebody that was an independent on the Supreme Court. But most of these appointments are, when somebody get appointed, it's political. It's a political
It
appointment.
should be more transparent. I think we should be more transparent with the voters. Realize, I mean, look, everybody knows right now the Michigan Supreme Court is 4-3 in favor of either Democrats or liberals or whatever you want to call them. But people should have a better idea. I mean, when you go on the to vote, you don't know anything about the candidates. Most people at least take some comfort in voting for their party. They'll say, well, oh, this is a Republican, I'm going to vote Republican. This is a Democrat. And so I think the state law should change on that.
So you're saying that if you're a Democrat and you're running for a judicial seat, that you should be able to put Democrat or whatever.
I think so.
Yeah,
see,
they should.
Different because you do want to, because people will assume because you're a Republican, they will assume that you're going to be conservative about every single decision, every case that comes before you. I don't think that's true.
But not necessarily, though. But not necessarily.
I get it.
But a politician, you could say the same thing.
I get it. I'm just saying, I like it the way that it is.
Listen. Back in the 1950s, Eisenhower appointed Earl Warren to the court, and Warren was the governor of California that signed the order to intern the Japanese during World War II. They asked Eisenhower, what was your two biggest mistakes as president? He said, well, both of them sit on the Supreme Court, because he thought that he was appointing conservative people, very conservative politicians, and they turn out to be super liberal, super left. So sometimes you get people that you think is taking one way, and they really flip the switch on you.
Well, realistically, at the end of the day, you have to follow the law. So whatever side that you're on,
what universe you living in? What universe you living in? We got a Supreme Court. We got a guy. Clarence Thomas should not have a R or a D. He should have a UT by his name.
How about Dave Young out there making a comment about the partisanship? And I believe that everybody has some kind of bias, and we have to recognize our bias.
Absolutely, I agree.
But it's why judges issue opinions, and there's a reason they're called opinions, because they interpret a law the way they want to interpret. I mean, it's so clear. We know when a case goes. I mean, look, the case with the presidential immunity before the Supreme Court. That was very. I mean, there were very different sides to the Republican Democrat on that.
The Supreme Court said black people was only 3/5 of a human being. The Supreme Court said separate but equal. The Supreme Court, okay, the sterilization of a whole group of people. You know, we living in those times. And then the Supreme Court changed the way.
Even the examples that you're given, it evolved. People evolve, things evolve.
But
so
then we go back and do the same shit.
You have to follow the law based upon what you said. You're right. You have opinions. How you interpret it. So how you interpret it, does it really matter whether or not you're Republican or Democrat or independent?
Well,
does it really matter?
There's
an assumption there that because you're a Democrat, you're probably going to rule this way. But that's not necessarily true. So that's why I say nonpartisan, I think is fine.
But it's very predictable. I mean, look, the RFK issue, RFK Jr. being on the ballot, a lower court judge said he has to remain on the ballot. Then the Court of Appeals said, no, he should be removed from the ballot. And then Jocelyn Benson appealed to the Supreme Court, and people figured, okay, it's going to go in favor of the Democrats who want RFK's name on the ballot, and that's what happened. So it's a little predictable there.
Of course it is. You know? It's very partisan.
And so
we need to take a break. We come back and continue this conversation. Detroit in black and white.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
In the heart of Detroit, Bruce Simpson. Our city ombudsman and his team are dedicated to making your voice heard. The City of Detroit Ombudsman is a liaison between the City of Detroit and all persons who have a complaint or inquiry into the operation of a city department or the conduct of a city employee. The Ombudsman works as an independent oversight to provide individuals with an opportunity of giving a confidential avenue to address complaints. You can reach the Ombudsman's office at 313-224-6000 or email us at ombudsmandetroitmi.gov. You can also visit us at the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center. For more information, go to www.detroitmi.gov and type in Ombudsman. We are here to help. In Detroit, we are all one team. When you win, we all win.
Hey, I have a question for Jim. As a former police chief, police officer, were you ever frustrated with judges in the court in Trenton or even Wayne County Circuit?
Always. I mean, you're always frustrated with some of the decisions judges make, right? But doesn't mean they're wrong because you don't agree with them. And sometimes, in hindsight, we look back and say that they're correct, even though we don't agree with them.
Although sometimes, I mean, I have, like, they're dead wrong. They just got it wrong. You get really upset about it. But at the end of the day, it's just like as kids, if you're growing up, your parents tell you something that you don't want to hear, you live with it, you walk on, you do what you got to do. So, I mean, that's the bottom line. Now,
I'm pissed off. In Colorado, the Elijah McCain, the guy that got murdered by EMT folks, the judge let one of them out. He said, well, instead of him serving 5 or 6 years for the death of this young man, he's giving him supervised probation now. He let him out of prison. See, that kind of stuff pisses people off.
I think Marlon's talking about being fair to the public, and I think that is the goal of the justice system. It just doesn't always work that way.
Right. It's not a perfect system, but it's the system that we have, and you have to work within that system.
Judges are
me and Allan's ex-schoolmate, Vincent Chan, his killers got probation.
Right. Well, that means they had good representation.
Was a racist piece of judge that just let those men lost.
Call everybody who does not agree with your opinion a racist.
Yeah, well, at the shoe fit,
everybody that does not.
He was a racist. He was a racist piece of shit. That's what he was.
And then you start calling them names. You should be calling people.
So what? I'm gonna call them names.
Because if somebody called you a name, you would have a problem with it.
I've been called a lot of names.
Like
and you'll see all the names I've been called. But you know what? Not only I can take it. I
got up under Trump's skin. I could get under your skin. I could get under his skin.
Like people can get under your skin. See, you can get it out. But
absolutely. I get up under my skin, and guess what? I do the same thing that you do. I fight back.
I think too many people in the Vincent Chin case blame the victim in that case, and it's unfortunate. I think the judge felt sorry for the men that killed Vincent Chin.
Men
They
were
didn't
just,
know the difference
they were
between the
ignorant-
Japanese and
they
the
were ignorant.
Chinese.
Remember.
they were ignorant bigots, those two
That's
guys.
right.
And it's really unfortunate the way that case was handled. But I have an outrage. I came home. I did a story on this, and you can read it on Deadline Detroit. I came home and found a flyer in my mailbox, and it said, "The Democrats are coming after your menthols." And then it said, "Democrats, Kamala Harris are trying to take away your menthol cigarettes. Let them work on other things more important in your life, like affordable housing, gasoline, all that kind of stuff." I mean, it's a group that is trying to pander to the Black community, trying to scare and say the Democrats are going to take away your menthol cigarettes. What's happening, and it's a little bit of an embarrassment to the Democrats as well, because what's happened is the FDA has in place, they have it, it's not implemented, but they have drafted a plan to ban menthol cigarettes. And 80%, the statistics are 80% of Black smokers smoke menthol cigarettes. Menthol cigarettes are more addicting. They're easier to smoke. And so what's happened is the Biden administration early on in the year, his advisors were telling him, we don't know if it's good to implement this ban right now because we could lose Black smokers. So the criticism was, so the Biden administration cares more about votes than they do about the health of Black people in this country. And so the Republicans have sort of tried to tap on this, but they're doing it a different way. They're just saying they're a scare tactic. They're going to take away your menthol cigarettes.
Well, that's interesting because we have a viewer who indicated that Trump doesn't care about the Black people. And according to the story you just talked about with this advertisement, they're trying to take your methanol. Obviously, that's not true. That he is
he's concerned about. He sees an opening.
The party is exactly.
He sees an opening.
Isn't that politics, though?
So people smoking cancer sticks are gonna get upset because the government is gonna ban them, right?
Well, I interviewed Reverend Horace Sheffield, who's been a big proponent of banning, and he's not happy that the ban's been delayed, but he says this issue is not going to keep us from voting for Kamala Harris. And if you think that a Black person says, well, screw it, I don't care about anything else. My issue is menthol cigarettes. I don't care about anything else happening in this country. Well, I think they're underestimating Black voters that they're, going to vote on that.
So I'm a black voter. I can't even weigh in on that because I don't smoke cigarettes, never smoked cigarettes, so I don't know. So I as a Black voter, I can say that doesn't make me any difference. I'm going to vote the way that I'm going to vote.
Well, that makes me go out and vote. That flyer make me go out and vote because
you should be angry
that you think that I'm not going to go to the polls because you're going to take my cigarettes away. That's
not what they're saying, though, Adolph. I think what he's saying is that they're trying to scare them and say, hey, look, they're trying to take away that's the same menthol in their cigarettes. So you shouldn't vote for that party. You should vote for people in this party. That's what I think you're saying.
Well, that's their message. They're trying to say is that there are more important issues. Why are they wasting time? It's such a nonsensical issue. But the issue is the FDA says in the next 40 years, you could save hundreds of thousands of lives with this ban. So if they see that as the Republicans are trying to say, that's a minor issue, healthcare. Don't worry about it. We have more important things to talk about. I agree with Adolph. It's offensive. When I saw it, I was like, I immediately, I came home Wednesday night. I started working on the story. I worked on it all day Thursday, and I published it. I talked to Reverend Wendell Anthony, and again, he had just gotten his flyer, and he was outraged about it. Yeah.
So because the Democratic and the Republican Party, what you're suggesting is that they assume that the voters are not that bright. Is that your point? And when did they care about whether the voters are bright or not? When has the Republican or the Democratic or the Independent or the Green Party cared whether the voters are intelligent or not?
Well, I think it's, I mean, in this case, I think it's just a total insult to black voters. But, there's also there was a story in the New York Times where there's a Republican group that is running ads in zip codes where there are a lot of Muslim and Arab voters. And they're doing this in a very sneaky way, saying Kamala Harris is pro-Israel. Kamala Harris's husband's Jewish.
Is it sneaky if they're putting it out?
Well, they're doing it, and they're saying Kamala Harris is Jewish. They're trying to. It normally would be some might see it in some communities as positive, but in the Arab community, it's supposed to have a visceral effect where people go, "Oh my God, what? Her husband's Jewish too, and she's pro-Israel. Well, screw that."
So the politicians are being dishonest, and we're spending 15 minutes talking.
So right, listen.
Well, we're trying to expose it. It's not. I think that's the purpose of our show. Sometimes is to expose what's going on.
So we're going to pivot for a minute because last week I talked about something and the deputy mayor was on the show and he said, Vanessa, that could not be true. So we're going to talk about the new criminal justice center. Okay. Adolph and I have talked about it. I don't know if you've done a story about it, but it is true. It is true. There are only 5 visitation rooms. That is true.
Yeah.
It is also true that you have to wait for hours to see your clients because they are short-staffed. Okay, you have this huge facility, and you may have one person going to grab these people for you to see them. The idea was because of technology, the advent of technology, is that they want us to be able, when I'm saying all of us, those that have loved ones, those of us that have clients, they want us to use the technology that you have to do visitation with your clients. The problem with that is this. When I want to give my client discovery, I can't give them discovery through a screen. I have to see them in person. So it really is a beautiful building, but it really has a lot of problems. Some of the problems is, we got to get used to it. It's a different building, new surroundings and that kind of thing, different kind of protocol. But the other part of it is those people who constructed those buildings it was clear that they did not consult with the powers that be. They did not consult with the sheriffs. They did not consult with the people that sit on the bench. I mean, it is some of the things that's going on over there. Some of the things that you see is just totally ridiculous. And again, I think it's a really pretty building, but it looks more like a hotel.
Why did they build it? Why did they build it on the side of the old incinerator?
Well, probably cheap. And I thought, now I don't know, I could be wrong, but I thought I read that. So the county paid far more money into this construction than Dan Gilbert, and he got all the gyms that's in the middle of downtown. For me, it doesn't make sense. Again, like I said, the building looks nice. There's a lot of positive things, but there are a lot of negative things, and I think they've had a lot of press about
Are they correctable, or are some of the problems built in that can never be corrected?
You know what? I don't know. So I read, I've gone over to visit clients. Like one day I went to go visit a client. I had to wait 25 minutes because there was only one deputy working. I had to wait 25 minutes to tell him because the line was long, to tell him who I was there to vote. And he said, ma'am, it's going to take an hour and a half for you to be able to see your client. So that to me is fixable. You can have more than one person at the desk. Now you have to walk out the building and around and stand out, ring a bell for somebody to let you in. So there seems to me that there should be a way that they can do a cutout where we could walk right from the criminal justice system right to the jail to see our clients.
So is it an upgrade from the old building?
To me, it is an upgrade from the old building. To me, it is, but there are a lot of people that are complaining about it. It really is. It's a really pretty building, but there are a lot of kinks that they need to work out. And listen, instead of saying, well, people have to get used to it. Yeah, we have to get used to it. Yeah, it's due. But there's some things that were wrong, and acknowledge that there's some things that's wrong. Now, I did read, and I have not talked to anybody, that some of them have to do their business in bags because the toilets are broken. when I saw my client, he said
I wrote about that.
Yeah, my client did tell me that they had been on lockdown for almost 2 weeks, and he said it's just super crazy in there. So, but they're mad. They're mad because some of them don't have their belongings. They're mad because they locked up. So some of the things that they're complaining about, they're going to do anyway, and some of them not. Some of them are legitimate concerns. If you move them from one facility, a jail that was plagued with a lot of problems, and you move them to a new one, and you got the same kind of problems, that's the problem.
Right.
Well,
you know what?
Next week we're gonna have the sheriff on.
Well, good. He should be. And that was another thing they're blaming him for. And I mean, I'm not his attorney, but I'm like, he didn't build the building. He's not responsible for that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, the old jail was so bad that the federal system would not house. Normally, federal courts house their inmates in the county jail, and they would not house their inmates, there. Okay, Jim wants to do does Jim have an outrage?
Well, I'll just go with this. I know we talked about it Thursday. I know there's a few police officers, some that are very seasoned out there watching the show today. And I want to talk about Tyreek Hill just for a second, all right? I'm reading a Washington Post headline on MSN. It says, Tyreek Hill isn't a perfect spokesman. That's exactly the point. And I'm going to tell you that's not the point, all right? That should not be the point. I looked at all the videos, and I suggest everybody that's interested in this, look at all of them, look at them from the beginning to the end. And those police officers were looking for a fight. They had his ID, they had his car, and they had his person. Yeah, he was running his mouth, which he should not have done. That doesn't make him guilty of anything. That doesn't make him belong on the ground. If you would have asked him to get out of his car, he probably would have got out of his car. They could not see whether he had a seatbelt on because he was. If you look at a sports car like that, you cannot tell. And number two, he was not doing 60 or 70 miles an hour as suggested. So they stopped him, threw him on the ground because he mouthed off at the police officer. What if he'd have been 3 or 5 miles outside of that area? That was a gang. And that was a gang. And that's a bad example of law enforcement in our country. And I'm really disappointed. I think the police chief should be gone. Those are his people.
Well, what do you think about here locally where the guy out of Warren, the police officer out of Warren beat up that teenager and now he's doing some prison time? It was called on camera. Did you see that?
I did not see this story.
Yeah, it was a federal case.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That guy, and he only got a year. I think he only got a year.
And he
had a history of doing things like this. And he had gone from one police department to another, one police entity to another. So
the truck, pulling the guy out of the truck.
It was a teenager. Oh. It was a kid.
The guy. Okay, no. Here's the thing: if you have that job, you have to have the proper temperament. If somebody wises off to you, you can't beat their ass. That's basically what they got.
Get hired?
Well, that's a good question.
And Lengel, you never had to face it. When I was in high school, we went to the Fox, and 4 of us in a car, went to the movie, came out. Here come the big 4 plainclothes cops from Detroit, had us on the ground saying y'all stole a car. Then they said, okay, it's not stolen. Gave a ticket because it said that a screw was off the license plates. We get in the car, drive around the building. Here come another car, and here they got us on the car. I said, I'm never coming back downtown in Detroit because we did all we did was get out of a movie, and it was 4 young black men, and they just talked to us any kind of, and it's ridiculous. And fast forward, they still do it. Still do it.
I defend police officers 99 out of 100 times because I understand I did the job. And thanks for weighing in, Ira Todd. We appreciate that. I've done the job. I understand the whole story is not always out there, but this whole story is out there, right? And this is a terrible example of policing.
Right.
They are a gang, and that's not what police are supposed to be.
Excuse me.
No, I totally, I agree with you on that. I mean, it should have been. It's an example. I mean, all these. The sad part is all these things that are happening with police officers, like the Grand Rapids case, where the cop chased after and shot the guy in the head. I mean, there should be training sessions where we say, here's what happened and here's what you don't do. And here's another training session moment where you say, here's what happened. They pulled the guy over. They escalated right away is to the worst point. I mean, thankfully it didn't get worse. It could have gotten worse in some departments where they could have killed them.
Where you kill a guy over selling Lucy cigarettes, you kill a young man for jaywalking. You know what? You can keep naming them on. And these cops, it's not isolated incidents, because a lot of these cops have been written up and got a history. Now, you need the police. And when you're in trouble, you should be able to call the police and not end up being a homicide victim.
And you know what? You can't. I mean, departments, and you can maybe speak to this, but when you're hiring people, you can't hire bullies. You hire some of these departments end up hiring bullies, and they give them a gun, and they give them the authority, and it's frightening how the abuse of that. You know, the DC Police Department used to take, and maybe they still do, they would take new recruits to the Holocaust Museum to show what abuse of authority can do and why it's so important to keep authority in check. And
Well,
so
they
I
need
don't know, did you have some bullies on your
We
department?
did, and they left.
Oh, you
They
fired-
left the building. Yeah.
You fired.
So
You
out of a
fired.
36 man, 30 whatever,
Right.
we got rid of
So-
probably 15%.
In some cases, you don't know that you're hiring. They have to show you who they are before you know who they are. But in some cases, like the
Some
case
have
I'm talking
records
about, this
of
guy,
bullies.
he had a record. I'm like, how did he even get a job? How?
Because the press of cities like Highland Park and these folks that don't have big budgets, they be hiring some of these recycled cops, and that's just the truth. You know, they can't get a job anyplace else. They go to Inkster or they go to Highland Park or some other little small city.
Oh, Marlene Holt, she talked about the listen. That's a good comment. Marlene Holt talked about a breach of the attorney-client privilege, where she's talking about the visit with said recorded visits with counsel. Oh, that was something else that they put out there. I talked to a couple of deputies. I was like, how is it I'm going to do this visit and my visit not be recorded? But supposedly they've corrected that. That is not what's happening. That you can be able to visit your clients without worrying that your conversation is being recorded. But people need to understand the building. If you're in the hallway and you're talking, everything is being recorded. I was in court yesterday. I was in court yesterday. Judge was having a side-by conversation with someone. I didn't say anything, but I heard my client and I heard everything that they were saying because you can hear it. So they do have some spaces, some safe spaces where we can talk to our clients.
You can ask the sheriff. You can ask the sheriff next week. Go ahead, Allan.
They had. I think some people misinterpreted during the Michael Jackson Balonis trial, where there were audio tapes played of his attorney talking to him, but it was his attorney who played it, and Michael, the defendant agreed to allow that. But some people thought, like, oh my gosh, they recorded and now they're, but that was done for the defense to show whatever.
Yeah,
So,
Thank you, Marlon.
We do have safe spaces in the building, 2 rooms on each side of each courtroom, and then, of course, I'm just going in person to visit my clients. I just don't trust it.
Yeah.
So I have to wait for hours. I have to wait.
Look, on wiretaps, there's supposed to be instructions when there's personal stuff being discussed. They're supposed to turn off the wiretap and not the recording. But there are agents who listen in.
Well, it's new. Get used to it, and we'll talk to the sheriff next week and see his opinion on how this new move and how he's dealing with those issues. Allan, final thought quickly.
My final thoughts is I know this is kind of a bullshit hope, but the Tigers are 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. They won against Baltimore, which is a great team. They won last night. They're playing tonight at Comerica Park at 6.
Mute his mic. Mute his mic. Vanessa, your final thought.
Vanessa Moss, write-in candidate for 36th District Court.
Okay.
Write-in candidate for 36th District Court. Have a good weekend. Like, subscribe, and share. We'll be back on Wednesday evening at 8:30, and then we'll be back again on Saturday. If you like the show, like, subscribe, and share. You can find us on all platforms.
And when you write in, there is a space
There will
there
be a space there to
writing.
write in Vanessa Moss.
Jim, your final thought.
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's watching out there. Thanks for participating because we need you to make this show go, and I appreciate it. I know everybody here does.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much.
And